We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for marriages. And I have a feeling this is going to be a really cool session today. So you'll want to share this with others for sure. So, Rosanna, what's our question for today's podcast for marriages?
What is an ideal wife?
Okay. And so what is it that triggered that question?
It was triggered a couple of weeks ago as we us women had gone over it, but we didn't ask you what you thought an ideal wife was. So we were going to swing back around. It's like a second half of it.
Interesting, isn't it? Because when we go through here, we see what is an ideal husband, but we don't see what is an ideal wife. So it's like,
Right.
That's interesting. So we'll have a section probably that'll go ahead and say what is an ideal wife. And so do you have the list? Don't say what list.
No.
You don't have the list? Why not?
Because I didn't write it down.
What list are you referring to?
We had a podcast a few weeks ago with Doreen, and then there was a few women that on it, and we all did what we thought what an ideal wife was. And we said that we were going to do a secondary because we never asked a man what an ideal wife was. So
What
we were
list
going to
am I talking about?
The list that you and I have, I think.
So the list that I had is a 19 or an 18 or 19-year-old boy, young man.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I'm not organized.
Really? Oh, well, that would have been so cute if you had.
It's probably in one of my marriage box savings thing. Then it's probably there. I just have.
But
I
you guys,
never.
if this is the first time you've listened to Roseanne and I don't know. I guess we'll bring that story up maybe in a follow-up session. And so, so I asked her for a list of her ideal husband. She gave it to me. It was an interesting list. Good. I gave her, she asked me for a list of an ideal wife, and she went back to her college dorm room and cried. And so, so I'm 60 years old. And so, when I was 19 or 20, this list would have been the same, but different order maybe. So when I look at it now, I would say the number one thing that comes to mind is it curiosity? It might be. Is it openness to growing and learning? Well, maybe that's curiosity, right? Is it
Right.
Is it wanting to go ahead and like being open to have their faults, their weaknesses pointed out? It might be. It might be. I mean, my list for me, I don't think I put this on, but I might have. Probably not, because it would have given you an edge. So for me, my list and the mobile app, the mobile app is really interesting because you can actually, when you register for the mobile app, it actually has a tool in there on your ideal spouse. And so it's a complicated question in many ways. So I'm going to say for most husbands, not all husbands, but for most husbands, there's no question that it's going to be intimacy, physical, sexual. And so not for all husbands. There's a different, thermometer, you know. So sometimes, a husband's much more interested in sex than his wife is. Sometimes a wife is, sometimes they're kind of um, even high, even middle, even low. Um, and there's no question that for a man, the physical, the sexual is generally really, really important. So he's going to want a wife that's very sexual. I think that men may get a bad rap. Um, some men are goofy in that area, I think, where they're just selfish, so they're selfish lovers. They're just, they don't understand their wife. They're not, but I wonder if men are looking for not just the sexual pleasure, but the connection with a woman, his wife, the oneness, it's not just the excitement. It's something far more than that. Um, I think that he's going to want her, husband's going to want her to listen to him, that she's going to be more interested in him than she is in herself. He's going to want her to be more interested in him than in the kids or the grandkids. Now, a great husband, or now I can say great grandfather, either one is going to know that there's a time and a season, and he's going to put the kids or the grandkids above himself. And so he just will. He'll make sacrifices. I think a husband that does make sacrifices, he wants his wife to not take those things for granted. I don't know. For me, I don't think I need a lot of validation. I don't need, like, I think if I'm needing validation, um, probably I'm not doing a lot enough. Like, am I doing it for the praise or am I doing it because it's the right thing to do? I think he's going to want her to have some of the same interests, develop interest together. I think he's going to want her to uh, be healthy, be fun, um, be enjoyable, laugh. Um, he's going to want her to be smart. She may be smarter than he is, or she may not, but he's going to want, often women, and I don't say this to seduce women, often women who are smarter than their husbands. When you say smart, what does that mean? Well, it could mean a lot of things, right? I mean, all kinds of different intelligences. So there's IQ, EQ, all kinds of different intelligences, emotional intelligence, other intelligence. Um, I think that a husband's going to want her to awaken him, um, definitely sexually, but more than that, emotionally, mentally, relationally, spiritually. Like he's going to want that. Um, he's going to want his wife to believe in him. Like he's going to want his wife to be probably his biggest cheerleader. He's going to want his wife to understand his heart. He's going to want, a great husband will want her to challenge him. Like if he's not spending time with the kids, a great husband's going to want a wife to challenge that. If he's not carrying his load, if he's being lazy, a great husband, an amazing husband, is going to appreciate a wife who's going to challenge him. He's going to want her to grow. He's going to want, like, we're coming up on, soon, very soon on our 40th anniversary. And so there's that, 17-year-old girl that I'll never forget that I saw the very first time. And then there's the girl that was 18 and 19 and just absolutely captured my heart in a way nobody else has. Uh, and so he's never going to want, he wants to see her that way her whole life. forever. He wants to see her growing and excited. He wants to see her energized. He wants to see her. He wants to see her like he saw her then, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, relationally. He's going to want to see all of that stuff. And so, but then he's going to want her to grow. He's going to want to see her grow as he grows. I could never figure this out when I was, when we were married for 10 years or 20 years. I could never figure out. I'm like, I heard these couples getting married, divorced at 30. Like, what? How can you be married for 30 years? And then, like get divorced at like 30. And then when we hit our 30th anniversary, then I understood why couples get divorced at 30. And when we hit our 35th anniversary, I really understood why. Now, some specific things for, you ladies is if you have a husband that's an analytic personality, he's going to want you to have a lot of energy as an expressive, but he's going to want you to control it. He's going to want you to control it. He's going to want you, like he doesn't want to go out and be with friends like you do, but he does, but he doesn't, but he does, but he doesn't. And so he's going to love your childlike charms, your goofiness, your playfulness. He's going to love that, but he's not going to want you to take it too far. He's going to love that you stretch him, but remembering that, hey, he's putting food on the table, he's got kids. I mean, he's got a lot going on. And so, there's that. If you have a husband that's a ball, that's an amiable or hates conflict with others, he's gonna often want the opposite of what he is. So he's gonna love that you are driven, that you can help him control things, that you can clean up messes, that that you're strong, but he doesn't want your strength to become a weakness. And so he's gonna want that. If you went ahead and have a husband that's an expressive personality, if you have a husband that's an expressive personality, he's going to want you to be, he's going to want the analytic. So you're often opposites tend to attract. So he's going to want you to be like he fell in love with that you could balance a checkbook, that you could make sure everything, was done properly in order, that you had the house organized. Like the very things that he fell in love with are the very things that you're gonna feel that he doesn't love you anymore. But are you taking your strength and carrying it too far? And if you have a husband that's a driver like me, I'm gonna want the amiable. I'm gonna want a loving. I'm gonna want a loving, gentle wife. But I don't want her to be taken advantage of. I don't want her to be taken advantage of by the kids or by other people, or definitely not by strangers. And so I don't want her give her best of herself, which is her optimism and her joy and her enjoyment and everything. I want that coming to me. I want to see it in other people for sure. I'm going to want to see it in the grandkids, with like soft and gentle and loving, but not taking advantage of my wife. And so, um, so if there's a whole bunch of different iterations. That's why I joined the Life GPS for sure, because that will help you to understand what your spouse is looking for. And so your husband wants you to be yourself, but he doesn't. What I mean by that, he wants you to be who you are, but he wants you to grow too. Like he want a, a good husband, a great husband. That's what he's going to want. And he's going to grow and you're going to grow and you're going to grow together where, 40 years later, you're very different people. 40 years later, you're still the same, but you're different. Like it's a maturing of love. It's really a miracle. It's really magical. It really is. So there's so much more that we could talk. And I'd love, Rosanna, to get other I'd love to get other men sharing what their thoughts are. And so, women, if you're hearing this and you're like, holy cow, that was that was cool. Cool. If you say, holy cow, I could never be that wife. You can. You can totally be it, but it's hard work. It'll never end. In many ways, I work harder at being a husband now than I have in our 40 years of marriage. And I got to continue to do that until one of us pass away. So I have to work harder now than I've ever worked before. And then to have women on here to go ahead and ask honest questions about men. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. Between men and women, between husbands and wives. Like we're not, like the book, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or whatever that book is. I think that's a good start. I think it's even more complicated than that. Rosanna, questions or thoughts?
No, it's interesting the amount of things on the list that I remember you having from before and how some of it's changed.
Yeah, it's definitely more in depth. It's definitely more thought out. It was pretty thought out. I mean, I gave it to you, I think, when I was 18. I started thinking about marriage when I was 8 years old. So I had 10 years coming into that. Now I have, it'll be 52 years now. 52 years of thought. And so good deal. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, for sure share it with somebody else. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.